Inchstones, 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 Inchstones. Let me take this one out too. The Inchstones of today, as I was walking today, God was asking me about a good name and how I could have a good name. And I got a chance to spend some time yesterday at a mastermind, and it was incredible. I got to spend some time with Debbie and Amy and Raphael and Ben and Larry Kasanoff and Greg Reed. And we just sat around, and what I realized was when I got into the community, the people gave me tons of energy. I walked in, and it was like they gave me life. And then, when I say they gave me life, the energy was unbelievable. Then they began to speak life to me. They talked to me about things that, were specific to me. They asked me questions. And as we were sitting around, I was asking other people questions. I got a chance to interview the producer of True Lies, Terminator 2, Mortal Kombat. This guy is named Larry Kasanoff. He's an absolute genius. But as I sat around, what I realized is this community is so very, very important, and it brings life to so many people around. Keith Hale was there. We were just playing games. Charles Vest did painting. And I realized that the only way that you're able to sustain or be around amazing people is if you have a good name. And this is something that Greg Reed taught me over and over again. He wanted to make sure that anything that was synonymous with his name, people were happy about. They were excited about. And he, in the mastermind, he talked about, clear communication, setting expectations. We have a group called Secret Knock, a conference. It's the #1 networking conference in the world. And it's here in San Diego. We're doing one in Vegas in September. And you can't go to it unless you're invited. And then once you're invited, then there's a price to pay that you have to come to it. And what we say is there's only one rule. It's be cool. If there's water that, all the water's not on your table, then get up and go get it for everybody. If you need to go to the bathroom, go to the bathroom. If there's a challenge, let us know. We'll make it better. But just be cool. So that's the expectation that's set. And what happens is when that expectation is set, it almost lays it onto the person as opposed to saying, like, let me set up all these expectations and then not deliver on them. And for me, that's the epitome of having a good name. And so as I was on my walk this morning and God was talking to me about it, he was letting me know that, I need you to get in the Word. And that's, we're going to Proverbs 22, the corresponding proverb for the corresponding day. One of my friends, Nadia, asked me yesterday, she said, well, how do you find all these Proverbs? Well, it's actually a book in the Bible, the Proverbs, and it's got 31 Proverbs in it. There's 31 days in a month, and we go through the corresponding proverb for the corresponding day. And she was asking me, like, well, what about, like, next month? And I said, well, we just reset it. We go back to Proverbs #1. And she said, oh, and I said, because when you read it in May and you read it in June, your circumstances are different, so the words read different. If you watch Terminator 2, which Larry Kasanoff produced today, and you watched it when you were 12 years old, you're going to see the movie completely different. I'm watching The Wonder Years with my son right now, Maddox, and every night we watch The Wonder Years, and he's actually going into 7th grade next year, and Kevin Arnold is in 7th grade. And as I'm watching it, it's amazing because I see it different than the way that I saw it when I was in 7th grade. So the corresponding proverb for the corresponding day, Proverbs 22, we're going to go through what it takes to build a good name, and you'll be amazed at the simplicity. When we get to the end, it will blow your mind of what it takes to build a good name. Let's get this party started.
Nothing more on my mind. I got 2 shines, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting. Right before your eyes, so it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised. Over and over and over again. Make no mistake, we continue to win. Defeat never know, cause I will not lose. They wanna mimic my moves, but can't walk in my shoes.
A good name. Let's start it off right now with these Inchstones. And what an Inchstone is, we don't look at the milestones. We look at the little tiny Inchstones that will build the milestones. And today what I want you to do is think about the overarching thing that you want. And a lot of times those things put pressure on us, right? When we think about, oh man, I need to get my finances straight. And your finances aren't that great. It's like a heavy weight. I need to get my relationships right. And your relationship ain't right. It's heavy. But just imagine that one little tiny thing, that little tiny Inchstone that you could work on today. And the only way that you could work on that is that if you're present in that moment, and when you're present, then that moment will actually happen. And with that moment, it'll create magic. And that's what God wants us to do, is he wants us to be present every single day, just the daily bread. The conversations that I had with Nadia, Amy yesterday, and Debbie Hart, I was sitting with her and they asked me a question. I have to be present. When you're playing games, you have to be present. And so the more and more that you're present, you focus in on these Inchstones, guess what starts to happen? Your name starts to build. And when you have a good name, opportunities are endless. So a good name is more desirable than great riches and is to be esteemed more than silver and gold. That's verse 1 of Proverbs 22. And I added in parentheses Bitcoin also, because some people are trying to get off on a technicality, and I do this with a lot of times with God, with his word, because I'm like, well, it doesn't apply to me because it's not listed out exactly. So I just paraphrase today. Bitcoin is not in the Bible, but more desirable than great riches and to be esteemed more than silver and gold. And sometimes, guys, when I read this for the today, it read different because I read that and to be esteemed more than silver and gold. And I put Bitcoin there. When I read that today, I looked at it. It's to be, but not always. So sometimes in our life, our money, our gold, our silver, our Bitcoin is valued more than a good name. We're willing to maybe mar our name a little bit to be able to get that, and we think that we'll go back and build the name again. And what I talked to my son about last night, he had he's doing a lot of YouTube shorts. So if you can go and subscribe to him and like him, that would be awesome and mean the world to me. He's doing these great videos. He's having so much fun. He's having fun with his friends. He's getting great response. But he put up a short yesterday and I listened to it and it had the F-bomb in it. Now, do I have, music that has the F-bomb in it? Absolutely. And sometimes I listen to it. But I was telling him, I said, what my pops taught me, or his Campa, it'll take a world, or it'll take a lifetime to build your character, but it'll take a moment to crush it. And I said, son, I just want you to think about that as you're posting videos. You're laying a foundation. You're 12 years old. You're laying a foundation for what your name is as you move forward. And so he said, I understand, Dad. And he said, I didn't realize that it had that lyric in it, so I'm going to go ahead and erase it. And he erased it. And so what I want to do is I want to help him to understand that a good name is more desirable than great riches, and to be esteemed more than silver and gold and Bitcoin and followers and likes and all those things. But is it? And just ask yourself that, and that's the very beginning of it. When we talk about this, as far as in a good name, stay humble in verse number 2. In verse number 2, Proverbs 22, rich and poor have this in common: the Lord is the maker of them all. So just stay humble. Be prudent. Have a thought of the future. Humility in verse 4 and 5. And humility will bring riches, honor, and life. This is what it talks about in verse 4 and 5. It will bring riches, honor, and life. And this is the first one that in Proverbs 22 that actually talks about a reward for something that you'll do. So imagine if you got riches, honor, and life. That's a good name. Like if you seek after a good name, when you have humility and you realize that there's going to be times when your business going amazing, your relationship going amazing, there's going to be times where you're down in the dumps, but God made it all. So we stay humble when we're on the mountaintop. We stay humble while we're in the valley. When we're on the mountaintop, we're looking for the next valley to go into to rest. When we're in the valley, then rest, because that's what it was designed for. A strong foundation is probably one of the most important things, right? And so character takes a lifetime to build and a moment to destroy. And that's in verse 6. And this was cool because I talked to my son about this yesterday. And as I talked to him about it, it was unbelievable because then I woke up this morning in Proverbs 22, God hit me with this. And I tell you, if you read the corresponding proverb for the corresponding day, not from a ritual standpoint, not from a religion standpoint, but just from a wisdom standpoint, it's amazing how the word, you read the word and then it'll start reading you. Stay out of debt, talks about in verse 7. It says the rich rule over the poor and the borrower is a slave to the lender. Stay out of debt. In verse 7, it talks about it. Verse 26 and verse 27. Be just. In verse 8, it talks about that. Be generous. Watch out for your community. Now, be just is in verse 8. Be generous is in verse 9 and 16. And your community. This was a massive one because my best friend Will always talked about this because he learned it from his mom. She always talked about watch out for the company that you keep. And more than that, what Miss Simmons taught me was to be a good friend. And the only way that I could be a good friend is if I have a good name. So when I think about that, I have to look at the community that I put myself around. Yesterday, I got to walk into the mastermind, the community, the Secret Knot community, which has been amazing. They lift me up. Ron Blackburn there, Greg Reed there, Charles Vest working with paint and pouring and showing me how to do it. He's an amazing human being. My community is tight. My big brother Rob, my best friend Will, my best friend Dave and Dale and Andy and Alfred and Nate and Paula. All these people are my community. And that's in verse 10, verse 24, and 25. In verse 10, it says, drive out a mocker and out goes strife. Quarrels and insults will be ended. Build and guard your heart. This was something that my mom talked to me about all the time. She said, build your heart and then protect it. What do we build it with? We build it with wisdom. Where do we get wisdom? It's the right use of knowledge. Where do we get it? From the fear of God. How do we fear God? It's just respect of God. We spend time with him. He just wants us to spend time with him. He just wants our attention. In verse 11, it says that. And to let you know that God knows. He sees all the things that you do, whether they're good or they're bad. He sees it. So understand that you can't run from him. You can't hide like I used to do when I was a kid and play hide and seek. And what I would do is I would hide underneath the bed, just my head, and my feet would be sticking out, and I'd think, no one can see me because I can't see them. No, God can see you. He sees your feet. He sees your body. He knows. He knows every single thing. If you want a good name, you put in work. If you want a good name, you'll put in work. It's amazing because I got an opportunity yesterday to speak on the Aspire Tour with Tim Story, one of the greatest speakers in the whole entire world. And the Aspire Tour, they're actually going to Madison Square Garden. They've got Alex Rodriguez. They've got Shaq is going to be speaking there. They've got all these amazing people, Hulk Hogan, all these things. And I got interviewed there. But when I say put in work in verse number 13, you see, since January 6th, this is the 116th episode since January 6th. 116. So I've been putting in work every single day. And then when I thought it was going to be an interview, and you know what it was? He asked me to speak for 20 minutes. Well, I've been speaking to you for 20 minutes, spending time with you for 20 minutes, putting lesson plans together for 116 times. So I killed some lions. I killed some bears. So when they asked me to stand up against this giant, I was ready. If you put in the work, you'll be ready. And when the opportunity comes, you'll be able to seize it. Just the little tiny inchstones. Water the soil. Water the soil as opposed to putting out fires in your business, in your life, in your relationships. Simply water the soil. Then that way, when the fire comes, it can't catch. Right? Invite discipline. Verse number 15. Verse number 15, folly is bound up in the heart of a child, but the rod of discipline will drive it out. My dad used to use this as, hey, I need to discipline you, son. But invite discipline into your life. Imagine if you just invited it and you just said, hey, I want it in my life. I want to get better. And every single day you got better by just a little tiny inchstone. That will build your name. Listen, apply, guard, and speak and trust. Listen to wisdom. Apply it. Guard your heart. Speak life to people. And trust God that he will deliver. That's in verse 17 and 19. Seek counsel and knowledge. Be honest and speak truth. That's in verse 20 and 21. Do right. Verse 22 and 23. Respect those who came before you. Verse 28. And watch this. What's crazy about it is when you look at all these things, again, this becomes heavy. How can I get a good name? Stay humble. Be prudent. Have humility, right? Build a strong foundation. Stay out of debt. Be just. Be generous. Watch your community. Be a good friend. Build and guard your heart. He knows. Put in work. Work the soil. Invite discipline. Listen. Apply. Guard. Speak. And trust in God. Seek counsel and knowledge. Be honest and speak truth. Do right and respect those who came before you. That's a lot. Well, what's great about it is what God says in verse 29. He simply says this. Work your land. Work your land. So he takes you through all the things that it takes to be a good name. And he says, the only way that the good name will actually work is if you spend time with me and you have a relationship with me. Imagine that. He keeps it so simple, but he lists out all the things because he knows these are the things that will be in place. But if you just work your land, I will build all of them. I'll bring all of them into your life. And then guess what? He will get the credit. And when he gets the credit, you tell the story of him. He gave me this right afterwards is God again breaks down how to get a good name, but in the end, he gives us the magic that powers it all. And that is simply to work our land and become skilled at what we were purposed to do. There is only one way to know what that is, and that is to spend time with him. His yoke is light. Focus on the Inchstones, and you can be present to experience the moments that were designed for you. Keep it simple and seek him. Little, tiny Inchstones. The world wants us to get focused on all the other weight. They want to get us focused on all the things that we have to do to be able to get this good name. And what God is saying is simply work your land. Work your land. I designed you. Be skilled at your work. Watch this in verse 29. In verse 29 of Proverbs 22, it says, do you see someone who is skilled in their work? They will serve before kings. They will not serve before officials of low rank. Work your land. Little, tiny Inchstones. That Inchstone, when you do it, you have to be present to be able to see it. And when you're present, it'll create your moment. And those moments will create magic. Your moment is waiting for you. But God wants you just to be present with him. He wants to give you the daily bread, and he wants to lift you up. And when he does, you'll have no excuse but to give credit to him, and that will build his kingdom. My name is Kelly Cardenas. I appreciate you. Like, subscribe, share it with all your friends. I appreciate you. We're doing this every single day, the corresponding proverb for the corresponding day. I love you. And I'm officially off the hot seat. Peace, love, and soul.